The skies over Zephyrian Prime were always gold at dawn, shining softly across the glass towers of the alien capital. But this morning they turned red. The warning sirens echoed through the royal plaza, and alien guards rushed to formation. It wasn't an invasion, not yet. It was something worse. Something silent. The queen stood at the high balcony, her golden armor catching the early light. Her violet skin shimmered under the twin suns, but her expression was sharp. She wasn't afraid. Queen Valerixa was known as a ruler who bent stars to her will. Her enemies called her cruel. Her people called her the heart of the empire, but today her heart failed her. No explosion, no assassin. Just a strange pressure rising in her chest as she watched the sky. She gasped, stumbled backward, her hand clutching her torso. The guards didn't know what to do. A queen was supposed to fall in battle, not during peace. 2 hours later, the capital went into full lockdown. Her private healers failed. Her body began to convulse, then stiffen. No poison was found, no virus. Only her breathing slowing like a dying star. In another corner of the galaxy, Earth's remaining diplomats listened in silence as the message arrived. One of them, a former field medic named Jason Tren, asked a single question. Do they even know what a heart attack is? No one answered. Zephyrian biology was different. They had never encountered such a failure. Their queens were bred perfect, genetically enhanced to rule for centuries. They didn't even have a word for cardiac arrest. But Jason did. The message came from the Empire itself, an order, not a request. They needed human expertise, not weapons, not scientists. A healer, one who could understand organic failure in muscular cardiac tissue. One who had seen it in trenches, deserts, and space fields. That meant Jason. He packed quickly. Not because he wanted to help, but because he had seen this once before. A young soldier, gasping under alien gravity, his heart swollen and misfiring. The look in the queen's eyes in the footage was the same. When he landed, the palace was silent, no music, no color. The glowing green structures around him felt cold, as if the entire city held its breath. Guards escorted him with weapons drawn. He wasn't trusted. He didn't care. He was here to save a life. Inside the palace, Queen Valerixa lay still. Her skin had turned dull, her breath shallow. Her ceremonial crown had been removed. Her hand twitched every few minutes. Jason knelt beside her and placed his hand on her wrist. Her pulse was erratic. He pulled his scanner from the medpack and frowned. The data was alien but familiar enough. Her blood had thinned. Her primary artery spasmed irregularly. Whatever had caused this wasn't natural. It wasn't war. It wasn't poison. It was grief. Jason looked at the court medic, who had stood frozen the entire time. Has she lost someone recently? He asked. The alien did not answer. Instead, her eyes dropped to the floor. Jason understood. Something had shattered inside her, and now it tried to take her with it. He pulled a thermal stimulator and prepped. A controlled pulse. "Don't fight me, Your Majesty," he whispered. He wasn't sure if she heard, but her chest twitched. A flicker. A start. Then stillness again. The room felt colder, but Jason didn't stop. He applied light pressure and used a translator band to speak directly into her auditory cortex. "You don't get to die." "Not yet. Not until I say so," he said calmly. She blinked. That was all he needed. The heart fluttered once. Then again. Not strong, not stable, but the beginning of something. The queen's fingers curled slightly, brushing against his wrist. Her eyes opened for a breathless moment and focused on him. Then closed again. Jason looked up at the silent guards. "I need fluids, electrolyte-based, and privacy, now." They didn't move at first. Then one nodded and left the room without a word. The others followed slowly, like statues coming to life. Jason was left alone in the grand golden chamber. kneeling beside the most powerful being in the Empire, holding her wrist and whispering human words into alien silence. The Queen had almost died, but now she had a chance. And it all began not with a weapon, but a heartbeat. Jason sat in the Queen's private healing chamber. The room pulsed with soft green light, walls humming with a low frequency meant to stabilize the body. But it wasn't helping her. Alien technology could not understand a broken heart. He adjusted the saline drip and watched as the fluid entered her veins. Her skin still looked pale for her kind. She was not healing fast. He knew this was not just a physical issue. It was emotional, psychological. But where he came from, those could kill too. Her eyelids fluttered again. A twitch in her fingers. Her breathing had stabilized slightly. Jason leaned forward and whispered, "You're not allowed to give up. I've seen tougher men survive worse. I'm not leaving Queen Valerixa." He didn't know if she understood him, but it didn't matter. The heartbeat monitor, rudimentary and modified by his own hands, showed signs of improvement. Small, weak pulses, but steady. That was enough. For now, minutes passed in silence. Then the doors opened. 3 royal physicians entered, flanked by 2 guards. The lead physician, with glowing implants along her temples, stared down at Jason. "You touched the Queen without permission," she hissed. "We should end your life." Jason stood up slowly. "You called for help. I came. You didn't know what to do, so I did it." The guard raised a weapon. Jason didn't move. His eyes never left the Queen. She blinked. "Her heart is responding. If you want her to die, be my guest." "I'll stop right now." The physician looked at the heart display. She narrowed her eyes. The other physicians murmured among themselves. One of them stepped closer to the Queen and gently examined her forehead. "She is warmer," he said quietly. Jason turned away and began preparing another compound. It wasn't medication in the usual sense. It was a neurotrigger. One that had worked in panic attacks and trauma responses in war-torn colonies. He had used it on humans. Never on aliens, but the biology aligned just enough. He placed the patch gently on the Queen's neck. Then he sat back. The physicians watched in silence. The guards did not lower their weapons. The Queen gasped. Her back arched slightly. Then she coughed. Her hands jerked up and clutched at her chest. Jason moved quickly and caught her arms before she could rip off the monitor leads. "Easy, you safe. You're all right now," he said. Her eyes opened again, wider this time. They locked onto his. There was confusion in them. And pain, but also something else. Awareness. The guards stepped forward. Jason held up one hand, let her adjust. "She's not out of danger." Queen Valerixa struggled to speak. Her voice came out broken and weak. "Where am I?" "You're alive," Jason said softly. "That's what matters," the lead physician finally spoke. "How did you know?" "Our best healers failed. Our machines failed. But you, a Terran soldier, revived her." Jason looked down at the Queen's hand resting weakly against his. "Because I've seen this before. And because you were treating her like a machine. But she's not. She's a person. People break in ways you can't see." The room fell quiet. The physicians stared at him with unreadable expressions. The guards stepped back. One even lowered his weapon slightly. Queen Valerixa's lips trembled. "It hurts. My chest. My mind. Everything feels heavy," Jason nodded. "That's grief. That's sorrow. It's not an infection. It's something deeper. You've lost someone important. And your body is reacting the only way it knows how." She closed her eyes. Tears welled up and slid down her face. The Queen who had ruled galaxies was crying. Like a wounded child. No one in the room dared to speak. Jason placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're not weak. You're not broken. You're just human in your own way. And that's not a flaw." The lead physician stepped closer. She lost her son 3 days ago, killed by a rebel ambush. She refused to stop, refused to rest. We thought it was strength. We were wrong. Jason understood now. The queen had buried her grief deep. So deep it attacked her from the inside. Her body couldn't handle what her heart refused to process. He nodded. I'll need to monitor her for the next 24 hours. No stimulants, no political meetings, just peace. Just care. The physician hesitated, then gave a slow nod. You are her healer now. Until she stands again. Jason didn't answer. He sat beside the queen and wiped the tears from her cheeks. She didn't flinch. Her hand closed around his wrist gently. Not in command. In trust. That moment changed everything. He came to save her life. But now he might end up saving something far more powerful. Her soul. For the next several hours, Jason remained by Queen Valerixa's side. He didn't move far. Just enough to check her vitals, refresh the 4-bag, and keep her comfort stable. She didn't say much. She only watched him, her eyes slowly following his every motion. The alien guards stood at a respectful distance now. They had seen something no weapon could offer a Terran, using empathy and experience to do what no royal tech or ancient serum could do. The queen had not only survived, she was recovering, but recovery came in stages. And the next part wasn't physical. As the afternoon light turned golden through the transparent ceiling of the healing dome, Queen Valerixa finally asked, Do your people understand grief the same way mine do? Jason looked at her gently. Pain doesn't care where you're from. It hurts just the same. Her lips trembled, but she nodded slowly. My people never saw me cry, not once. Even when my consort fell. Even when my generals betrayed me. But when my son died, something inside me broke. Jason didn't speak right away. He let the silence honor her pain. Then he pulled a small medallion from under his shirt. My sister wore this before she passed. Bombing in Titan Sector. I kept it to remind me that love leaves marks. But it also leaves strength. The queen studied the tiny metal charm. It held no power, no glow, just a quiet history. Your people. You carry reminders. Always, Jason said. Because forgetting would be the real loss. Her fingers twitched again. This time, she reached for the medallion. He placed it in her hand. She closed her fingers around it slowly, as if holding something fragile. Moments later, the doors opened. A royal advisor entered, cloaked in purple and silver. Her expression was controlled, but her eyes widened at the sight of her queen sitting upright, alive and holding something human. Your Majesty, the advisor said, bowing deeply. Forgive my intrusion. But the council has summoned an emergency vote. They believe the throne should be transferred to your cousin until your health is stabilized. Queen Valerixa didn't respond immediately. Her gaze shifted to Jason, then to her trembling hand, then back to the advisor. Tell them, she said slowly, that if they try to touch my throne, I will return from death itself to tear it from their hands. The advisor looked stunned. Jason blinked in surprise too. There was fire in her voice again. Her blood was cold, but her will had returned. That spark, that commanding presence, he could see it again now. The advisor bowed. As you command, my queen. As the door closed, Valerixa leaned back and exhaled. I will not lose everything. Not my son, not my throne, not myself. Jason gave a slow nod. You're fighting, that's good, but your body still needs time. Push too fast and you'll fall again. She closed her eyes. Then you will catch me. It was not a question. It was a statement. And Jason found himself answering without hesitation. Yes, I will. Later that night, the palace grew quiet. Lights dimmed. The green glow became softer, almost like starlight. Jason prepared a fresh nutrient dose and walked back to her side. She watched him with tired but calm eyes. "I felt everything," she said suddenly. "While I was unconscious, the panic, the pain, and then your voice. It anchored me. Like gravity," Jason smiled faintly. "I just said what I needed someone to tell me once." She looked at the ceiling. "My people think perfection is strength, that to show pain is to show failure. But you healed me by doing the opposite. By seeing me." Jason sat beside her again. "You are not alone in this. Not anymore." For the first time she smiled. It was small, gentle, but real. Her hand rested near his. Not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth. A low hum signaled. A message from the upper court. Jason ignored it. The Queen did too. In that moment, nothing else mattered. He glanced at her softly. "I'll stay as long as you need me." She turned her head. "And if I need more than healing?" Jason didn't look away. "Then I'll listen, and I won't run." They sat there in silence. Two lives from different stars. One broken by sorrow, one shaped by loss. And now, both quietly beginning to rebuild something new. The Queen closed her eyes, this time not from pain, but peace. Jason watched over her. Not as a healer now, but as something else entirely. Someone who saw not just her strength, but her soul. Jason awoke in the same seat beside her bed, head resting against the golden panel. He hadn't meant to fall asleep, but exhaustion had taken its toll. The Queen was still resting peacefully. Her breathing was strong. Her skin had regained its color. Morning light poured through the dome, casting soft beams over the polished walls. Outside, the sounds of the capital were waking up again. Zephyrian Prime continued without pause, even as its queen lay healing. Behind thick golden doors, a quiet shuffle made Jason sit up. Queen Valerixa stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She turned her head and saw him. Her voice came low but clear. "You're still here," Jason nodded. "I said I wouldn't leave. And I meant it." She looked around the chamber. Has the council returned? They sent another message, asking if they should begin preparing a public statement. I told them no. Her lips curved slightly. "You speak like a commander. I've had to be one. At least for a while, leading a squad in the ruined sector. We lost half our men. After that, I stopped speaking with softness." She listened in silence, watching him. Then she said, "I don't remember the last time someone spoke to me without fear. That's because they see the crown, the power. I see the person. I see you." A long silence stretched between them. Jason adjusted the blanket draped over her. The Queen didn't flinch. She welcomed the care, the closeness. The door opened quietly. A young royal aide entered with a tray, warm broth, energy spheres, hydration fluid. Jason took it and nodded. "Thank you. We'll manage." As the aide left, Valerixa reached weakly for the cup. Jason helped her lift it. She sipped slowly, her hand brushing his. There was no armor on her fingers now. Just skin, just warmth. "You know," she said, "there's a legend among my people. It tells of a healer who came from the stars and mended the heart of a dying world. But in doing so, he lost his own." Jason smiled faintly. "And do you believe that legend is true?" "I didn't, until now." She finished the drink and leaned back against the cushion. Her strength was returning slowly. Not enough to rise, but enough to speak with clarity. "You've given me more than medicine. You've given me understanding. No one has ever dared to speak to me as you have." Jason leaned forward. "Because they see a queen. I see a woman who fought alone too long. A mother who never got to grieve. A soul that's been silent." She looked down, her hands clasped in her lap. "My son's name was Keller. He was gentle. He never liked war. He always found excuses to leave the training halls and explore gardens instead." Jason listened quietly. The pain in her voice came like a wave. She continued, "I pushed him. told him softness would destroy him. That in our world, kindness is a weakness. He died trying to make peace with rebels. They ambushed him during the talks, her voice cracked. His final message said he still believed peace was worth dying for. Jason reached out and held her hand. Her fingers closed around his instinctively. You didn't fail him, he said. You just wanted him to survive. That's what parents do. But he made his choice. And he did it for something he believed in. That matters. Tears slid down her cheeks, silent and slow. Jason didn't wipe them. He let her cry. She needed it. Her guards never saw this. Her people never knew this part of her, but he did. And in that moment, something shifted. The queen who ruled worlds leaned against a Terran who carried no rank, no titles. Just truth. Just presence. The room felt warmer, brighter. Her aura, once cold and unreachable, began to soften. I'm afraid, she admitted quietly. Afraid I've lost too much to ever lead again. Jason shook his head. You haven't lost. You've changed. That's not weakness. That's growth. And they'll see it too. If not now, then soon. He stood slowly. You need fresh air. A walk, even just to the courtyard. She raised an eyebrow. You forget. I can barely stand. Then lean on me, he said. She looked into his eyes. There was no mockery in his tone, only respect. And something deeper. She took his hand. Slowly, carefully she shifted her weight. Her legs trembled. But with Jason's help, she rose, unsteady, but standing. Together, they stepped toward the door. Two figures, one royal, one forgotten, walking side by side into the light. And as they crossed the threshold, a quiet breeze stirred the royal banners. A symbol, perhaps, that a new chapter was beginning. A chapter not written by war or politics, but by healing. Jason guided Queen Valerixa into the courtyard, where the twin suns lit the polished stone paths, and the crystal trees swayed gently in the artificial breeze. The royal guards stiffened when they saw her walking. Their eyes widened in disbelief. Whispers began to ripple through the palace. She walked slowly, leaning on Jason for support, her steps unsteady but full of quiet defiance. Her golden robe flowed behind her. Her crown was gone, her armor replaced by soft fabric. She no longer looked like a warrior goddess. She looked like a woman learning how to breathe again. Jason helped her reach a stone bench beneath a flowering vine that shimmered with green petals. He eased her down gently. She winced, but then let out a small breath of relief. I never realized how heavy my own body felt, she murmured. You've carried more than weight, Jason said. You've carried a nation's silence. Now you're letting it go. She looked at him. And what about you? You speak like someone who's seen more pain than healing. Why? He looked away for a moment, then answered, I joined the Terran Medcorps to save lives. But on my first mission, we lost everyone except me. I kept one soldier alive for 7 hours, watching him slip in and out. I couldn't save him. I've hated silence ever since. Valerixa said nothing. She reached for a petal falling beside her and let it rest in her hand. You carry your ghosts well. I don't let them win, Jason replied. The queen's eyes lifted to the sky. When I was young, I believed strength meant never needing others. That if I stood alone, I would be untouchable. But Keller believed the opposite. He said connection was our power. Jason smiled faintly. He sounds like someone I would have liked. She closed her hand over the petal. You remind me of him. Not because you speak the same, but because you feel the world deeply and refuse to hide it. A silence stretched between them, but it was no longer empty. It was filled with meaning, trust, healing, and something unspoken growing between them. From the far side of the garden, a messenger approached quickly but bowed low. My queen, the High Council insists on an audience. They question your fitness to rule. Valerixa turned to Jason, her expression calm. "Do you think I look unfit to rule?" Jason answered without hesitation. "You're not the same queen." They knew. "You're better." She looked at the messenger. "Tell the council I will address them before nightfall. And I will decide who stands beside me." The messenger blinked. "Beside you, my queen." Jason stood still as her eyes locked. "Onto him." "Yes, beside me," she said firmly. The messenger bowed again and left swiftly. Jason let out a breath. "You realize that puts a target on me, right?" Valerixa gave a quiet smile. "They need to learn that healing is not weakness. That I survived not because of technology or command, but because a human gave me a reason to return." She tried to stand again. Jason helped her slowly. Her hand gripped his tighter than before. There was strength in her fingers now. They walked back through the hall. Servants stared. Courtiers stepped aside. Everyone watched her with awe. The queen had returned. But something about her had changed. Her steps no longer echoed with pride. They echoed with purpose. Jason whispered, "If they try to remove you, what will you do?" Her voice was calm. "I will not fight them with words. I will show them what survival truly looks like." When they reached the throne chamber, the doors opened wide. The High Council was already waiting. 12 elders stood in a circle, their expressions mixed with fear, doubt, and surprise. One of them stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we questioned whether your mind and body could endure the pressures of rule. We considered assigning regency." Valerixa raised a hand. "You considered wrong. I endured the worst pain a mother can face. I walked through death's door, and I returned. Not by your science, not by your plans, but because someone dared to care when you did not." She turned slightly, gesturing to Jason. This Terran did not kneel, did not flatter. He simply saw me and healed me. "So I ask you now, are you so blind that you would cast away what gave me life?" Silence fell. Some lowered their heads. Others looked away. But none answered. Jason felt every gaze land on him. He stood tall, not as a warrior, not as a noble, but as a human. Valerixa took her seat, not on the throne, but on the bench beside it. A choice that spoke louder than orders. She faced them. "All. We lead not by fear, not anymore. From today forward, compassion will not be punished. It will be our foundation." The chamber held its breath. Then, one by one, the counselors knelt. Jason stood beside her. And in that moment, 2 worlds changed direction. Asterisk. The throne chamber remained silent even after the last counselor bent their knee. It was not submission out of fear, it was something deeper. Respect, the kind that couldn't be forced. It had to be earned. Queen Valerixa sat still, her breath calm, her voice steady. Her robe shimmered in the chamber's golden light. She was no longer the queen who towered above the court. She was the queen who had fallen and risen again with her soul intact. Jason stood beside her, not in armor, not in ceremony, but in quiet strength. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence beside her was enough. One elder rose slowly. "Your Majesty, this Terran saved your life. We see that now. But what is he to the Empire?" Valerixa looked at Jason, then looked at her people. "He is proof that survival is not dominance. That mercy is not weakness. He is not a tool of war. He is not here to conquer. He is here because I chose to let him in." The elder bowed. "Then he will be honored as a guardian of the crown. If that is your will." "It is," she said firmly. Jason shifted slightly. "I didn't come for honors. I came to save a life." "That's all," Valerixa smiled. "And in doing that, you saved far more than mine. You saved what we had forgotten. Our hearts." The council disbanded slowly, some looking confused, others grateful. As the chamber emptied, Valerixa leaned back and closed her eyes for a moment. Her hand rested near Jason's, I never asked your price, she said quietly. What do you want, Jason of Earth? He looked at her. I want nothing, except for you to stay alive. And to never forget who you really are beneath the crown. She opened her eyes. That is a rare answer, but an honest one. He nodded. I've seen too many leaders fall in love with power and forget the people. You're not one of them. Don't become one. She stood slowly, without help this time. Her balance was steadier now. She walked toward the outer balcony, overlooking the capital. Jason followed. Below them, thousands of citizens gathered. Word had spread that the queen had returned, not carried, not rolled in a chair. Returned on her feet. They looked up and gasped when they saw her. She raised one hand, a gesture of peace. The crowd bowed, not because they were forced, but because they felt something they hadn't in years. Hope. Jason stepped beside her. She leaned closer and whispered, I do not wish to rule alone anymore. You don't have to, he replied. I don't just mean counselors, she said. I mean with someone who understands the pain beneath the crown. Someone who won't lie to me. Someone who holds my hand when no one watches. Jason met her eyes. Are you asking me to stay? I'm asking if you'll walk with me. As a partner, not as a subject. He looked down at the cheering crowd, then back to her. You're strong on your own. But with the right person, even the strongest rise higher. I'll stay. Not because I must, but because I choose to. She reached for his hand and held it before the people. There were no speeches, no grand vows. Just truth, shown in touch and silence. Behind them, the palace shimmered brighter, not because of technology, but because its heart had begun to beat again. Days passed, then weeks. Peace talks resumed across the sectors. Old enemies sent messengers. And Valorix's message was clear. Healing was stronger than fear. Jason became her closest advisor. Not officially crowned, not titled, but known across the empire as the healer who revived their queen, not just her body, but her will to lead again. Every night, she would walk the gardens with him. Not guarded, not armored, just as herself. A woman who had nearly died from silence and now lived louder through connection. One evening, as they stood under the twin moons, Valorixa looked up. If Keller were alive, he would have liked you, Jason. Squeezed her hand gently. Then I'll honor him by making sure you never fall alone again. She smiled. Not the practiced smile of a ruler, but the soft smile of someone who had found something she thought was lost forever. Love, in its purest form, not born from power or need, but from healing. And so the empire was ruled not by fear, but by two hearts that had been broken, and chose to mend each other. Together, they rebuilt what war and sorrow had shattered. Together, they gave the galaxy something it had nearly forgotten, hope. The galaxy watched as Queen Valorix's empire began to change. Old systems of fear and pride gave way to unity and healing. Peace accords once thought impossible were now whispered across border worlds. Even the outer colonies, once full of rebels, began to send delegates instead of warships. But it wasn't just diplomacy that changed, it was the Queen herself. Her smile had returned. Her voice no longer echoed with cold command, but with calm strength. And at every meeting, in every moment of unrest, one figure always stood beside her. Jason of Earth. He had no crown, no titles. Yet his presence was never questioned. He was seen as more than a healer. He had become a symbol. Proof that compassion could guide empires. Inside the palace, under the starlit dome, Jason adjusted a device shaped like a glowing flower. It was a neural stabilizer, used to calm trauma surges. He had modified it himself and now taught alien medics how to use it. For citizens in grief, Valorixa entered the chamber, watching him work. You look more royal than I do, she teased softly. He turned to her with a smile. And you look like someone who doesn't need saving anymore. She walked to him and stood close. I still need you, but not as a healer. As something more. Jason raised an eyebrow. And what might that be? A witness. A partner. A future, she said. They stood together in silence for a moment. No throne, no audience. Just two people who had found each other in the ruins of pain. Later that day, a strange envoy arrived. It came not from a known faction, but from the Harkari, drifter region infamous for its mercenaries and slavers. They brought a gift. A glowing orb humming with unstable energy. Jason was suspicious. This isn't a gift. It's a trap. Valerixa examined the orb closely. They wouldn't dare. Not after what we've shown them. But Jason's instincts were rarely wrong. That night, the orb activated by itself. It released a wave of psychic energy that shut down palace defense systems. Panic broke out in the royal wing. Jason acted instantly. He grabbed Valerixa and shielded her body as the wave pulsed through the halls. Guards stumbled, lights flickered. The sound of crashing. Armor echoed through the stone corridors. When the wave ended, Jason's arms were still around her. She looked up at him, breathless. You still protect me like I'm broken. No, he said. I protect you because you matter. They rose together. The emergency systems rebooted. The guards rushed to their side, but found the queen. Already standing tall, not injured, not shaken. Just focused. Track the source, she commanded. And let it be known, any attack on peace is a declaration of war on the people's will. The message spread like fire. Within hours, the Harkari Drift sent an apology and recalled their emissaries. No shots were fired. But everyone now understood Valerix's empire may have softened, but it had not weakened. That evening, Jason sat with her on the quiet balcony overlooking the capital. Lights glowed beneath them. The air was cool. She rested her head against his shoulder without speaking. He placed his hand gently over hers. I used to think I'd live and die alone, Valerixa whispered. Jason responded gently. You were never meant to be alone. You just needed someone who didn't want your crown. She looked at him. And what do you want? Jason smiled. To grow old beside the woman who changed a galaxy by healing, not by conquering. She leaned closer. Then stay, not as my healer. Not even as my guardian. But as the man who reminded me I was still alive. Jason nodded. Then let's live. Together, from that day forward, their bond became legend. Not just as ruler and consort, but as a symbol. Across the galaxy, stories spread of the queen who fell and the human who lifted her, not with power, but with presence. No more wars were fought in her name. Only alliances made. No more walls were raised in fear. Only bridges built in trust. And each year, on the anniversary of her recovery, citizens from across worlds gathered to leave petals at the palace gates. Not for royalty, but for remembrance. For love. For healing. One day, many years later, the queen stood in the royal garden beside Jason. Her hair was silver now. His steps were slower. But their eyes still met with the same light as before. She sighed. We were never meant to meet, he replied. But we were meant to matter. And together, they watched the suns rise, not as rulers of galaxies, but as two souls who had beaten death and built something everlasting.